These kind of riders, they're sort of the diesel engine, as Zabriskie tried to do what he could to bring back Van der Velde. He's peeling off there, number 59. Very often riders who are like the big diesel engines I talk about very often, guys like Van der Velde and Dave Bradley-Wiggins, they need to pick up the pace and set their own comfortable pace to drag themselves back to the climbers. They can't take that change of pace, that violent change of pace that guys like Frank Schleck and Andy Schleck and Alberto Contador have on the slopes of a climb like this.
Well, Rigoberto Urán is here, and he was up there a moment ago, so they're not very far behind the Wiggins group, and they might try and get up to that group as best they can. Once we're over the top, there is a descent before we climb the Col de Colombière, and there are 15 kilometres off that mountain to the bottom. There is time to put matters to rights. Even if they lose time now, they can repair it. Pelazzotti has had a great day in the mountains, but maybe no more points on the two remaining climbs of the day.
Well, he's not too worried. I think his day has been fulfilled, and he's done exactly what he expected to do in the early part of this race, and he cannot rival the showdown that we're witnessing here. One man who also not been able to witness the showdown is this one, number 1, Carlos Sastre, the winner of the Tour de France last year, as he heads himself up towards the summit of this very difficult climb, the one that everyone had feared, the Col de la Rome.
Well, I do feel now that Sastre is out of the hunt completely. Frank is back up alongside Bro, and he's just going to try and give him a break now, keep the pace high. They're feeling good. They've got rid of Wiggins. That's what they wanted to do. Bradley Wiggins is being marshalled by Lance Armstrong, who won't attack his two teammates up front, Cloden and Alberto Contador. Wiggins just wants a look ahead, keep them in sights, rejoin them on the way down. The Col de Colombière isn't as steep as this climb.
I'm just looking at Armstrong there, Phil, and the way he's riding, the way he's pedaling, he's like a spring ready to pounce. He's just waiting for the moment, I think, when he can just jump across the gap. He's not under any difficulties at all at the moment, I would say, and he's waiting to see whether or not those guys with him can drag him back into that leading group.
Well, he's put Rigoberto Urán into trouble there now, but he has been in the front group all day. Here are the leaders. Frank is now the pacemaker. These two magnificent brothers, who are the closest of friends, do everything in tandem, and they're trying now to destroy Alberto Contador. I think that's a forlorn hope, but you've got to try. The solid face of Frank Schleck, who had a rough ride in places yesterday, he's strong today.
Well, Andy Schleck, the grimace of pain there as he sits on the wheel of his brother Frank in first place. They want to try and get rid of, they know they can't get rid of Alberto Contador. Just look at the way that he's all over that machine, out of the saddle like a real pure climber that he is. Andreas Cloden is also very comfortable. Wiggins and Van der Velde need to pace themselves back to that group, because otherwise Andreas Cloden could find himself moving into second place overall tonight.
Well, he's been there on 2 previous occasions in Paris, but we'll see what he can do today. They're not much in it, is there, when you think they are the best climbers in the world. Wiggins is doing a very, very good climb. He's got now Van der Velde, who's come up to him, but I think he's about to leave him again. Van der Velde is having a good session now in the Alps.
Well, Van der Velde didn't have exactly the ideal preparation for the Tour de France this year, Phil. He was on the ground and out in a nasty accident in the Giro d'Italia, but to see the courage of a real champion, he was fading away from the front end of the group there, and he said, I can't do this, I can't give up, my mate needs me, I've got to pace him back into this group. We're looking at a podium position. This could be the decision, this could be the infrastructure at the top end of the overall standings of the Tour de France. As Andy looks over his shoulder, taps Frank on the back, says, come on, we've got the gap, we've got 30 seconds, that might be enough.
It's still a long way to go to the top two. 22 seconds to the Armstrong group, a minute 18 to Carlos Sastre now, so he's dropping away from this. Looking at the face of Lance Armstrong here. We are looking at the face now of Bradley Wiggins here, being escorted by Lance Armstrong and driven forward by his faithful team captain there, Christian Van der Velde, who is setting a pace which might yet bring them back into action. Sastre has now dropped away from the leaderboard, and he will stay that way for the rest of the Tour, I fear.
Well, he's battled on the early slopes of this climb. He was the first man to launch the aggression on the Col de Rome, and he went out on the attack on a number of occasions, but he couldn't rival the big accelerations that came later on from the two brothers from Luxembourg, Andy and Frank Schleck. This is amazing. We're looking at the two strongest teams here, Phil. 2 riders from Saxo Bank, 2 riders from Team Astana, and they're combining their efforts here to try and restructure the overall classification at the 2009 Tour.
Well, the Schlecks are just trying to get rid of that man in yellow, but he doesn't even look under pressure. He's a little bit more serious now, I must confess, Alberto Contador. But Schleck has got to get rid of him, and that's a much more difficult situation. Overall, Andy Schleck is 2 minutes 26 seconds behind Alberto Contador. There are no time bonuses in the Tour de France this year. It's real time.
Yep.
He's going to make 2:26 over that man in yellow. It doesn't look as though it's going to happen to me.
Phil, you look at the cadence of Alberto Contador when he sits in the saddle. He's tickling those pedals very easily. He's comfortable in this group, allowing these other riders who he knows are on a mission themselves. They need to try and put time between themselves and Bradley Wiggins if Andy Schleck is going to have any hope at all of getting himself a podium position in Paris. He is doing a good operation when it comes to the white jersey classification, because he's already got rid of Vincenzo Nibali, who is in that group behind with Lance Armstrong. That's Nibali there wearing number 95.
But he's won that competition. He wants yellow now. Lance Armstrong, I think, is just holding his place here. I don't think he's too stressed. He might wait for the Col de Colombier and launch an attack to try and catch his mates, as he did yesterday on the last climb of the day. But I take my hats off to Christian van der Velde. Somewhere he's dug so deep down to find the legs to bring him back up to Bradley Wiggins, knowing he needs him. Right in the distance there are the leaders of the Tour de France today. We still have to go downhill. There'll be risks taken on the descent now, so they get onto the Col de Colombier perhaps all together again.
Nobody can criticise, Phil, just looking at this, the comeback of Lance Armstrong. I can't think of any other sporting hero who's been away from a sport at the top level as Armstrong has, and has come back to be right in with the thick of the action in a mountain stage like this. Armstrong just sitting there fairly comfortably with the challengers to the top 3 positions in the overall classification, and he's riding the teammates' role here. He's riding as a real true sportsman.
No, he's absolutely terrific at the moment. Armstrong, he's on top of his form again. He knows this climb too, so he knows where it ends. All down to Andy Schleck now, and he can't lift it that extra to try and shake off these boys. Frank is still mastering the pace as well. Cloden, for me, I'd be very worried about him at the moment, because he's in a perfect position to ride away alone on the next climb.
That may well be. Cast your mind back, Phil, to 2004. We're looking here at Lance Armstrong. He won the stage into Grand Bornand ahead of who? Andries Clodium. Armstrong won ahead of Cloden into the Grand Bornand.
Yeah, sorry, I misheard you. There's the British flag there. Keep waving, because Bradley Wiggins is only about 35 seconds back. 30 kilometres, that's about 19 miles to the finish, but we've still got the Colombier yet. Bradley Wiggins, I think, is absolutely mastering himself here. He's not in the red zone, the pain debt. He's still working, he's still firing. He can close this down. They're not gaining enough on him right now, that's for sure.
Well, the clock is telling us it's 45 seconds between that leading group of 4 and this group, so it is starting to go out. Christian van der Velde trying to find something just to pace his own teammate up the slopes of this climb. Armstrong just sitting there ahead of Nibali and Jurgen van der Broek. A big revelation, I think, for Belgium this year, because he has been on the breakaway on a number of occasions. They're not threatening the man in yellow, though, yet, but I don't think that was their hope this afternoon. Their hope was to try and get rid of Bradley Wiggins, to try and give the possibility to this man of a podium position, but he needs an awful lot of time. He might need 2 or 3 minutes on Bradley Wiggins before the individual time trial tomorrow.
I think he knows that, and he's got to make up a little bit before he does that, because he started today. Bradley Wiggins was 1 minute and just less than 1 minute behind. A little bit more than 1 minute ahead. But we're looking at the situation now where Lance Armstrong, compromised by his stronger teammates at the moment, is happy to ride alongside Wiggins, not assist with the pace whatsoever. Neither will they expect it. This has been a really steep climb here, and Christian van der Velde has been superb to climb back up to him and start to give him a little bit of a relief at the front and try and get him up to the top. This is Christophe Moreau.
Well, he's ridden well over the last couple of days in the mountains as well. He's a long way down in the overall classification. He finished 4th overall in the Tour a couple of years ago, but here he's actually riding superbly through the mountains. Roman Kreuziger over there on the left-hand side. As we look into the face now, there's a move here, and it's Armstrong who's gone.
And he's taking Wiggins, and that won't go on. He'll have to desist if he's going to pull Wiggins across the gap.
Well, he couldn't get rid of Bradley Wiggins, and I think once he's noticed he hasn't got the gap on Wiggins, he may well swing off and allow Wiggins to come through to the front.
Well, Wiggins won't go through while Lance is setting the pace, that's for sure. Now, he obviously sensed it was time to get rid of the pacemaker, which was Christian van der Velde. He's done that with an acceleration. Unfortunately, our camera missed the acceleration. But Lance has settled back into his tempo now. And in fact, Wiggins looks as though he's content to sit there just for the moment. But he's helping him get closer to the boys. 1 kilometre to the top. And then it's going to be some chase off this mountain.
It's going to be a dramatic chase off this mountain. As soon as Armstrong knew that he hadn't got rid of Wiggins, you see, he wanted to get across on his own. He doesn't want to take the British rider across because he knows how important it is to Alberto Contador to also have a buffer over this man, Bradley Wiggins.
Nibali's climbing back in as well as they slowed down. I don't know whether Christian van der Velde can find the effort to slide back in. We've gone back to the leaders. Only one man working here as Nibali rejoins the trace. So Wiggins now setting the pace. He's looking, you can't see the leaders anymore, so he knows he's losing ground.
Well, the time check has come filter around about the 1 minute mark. Lance Armstrong is dreaming about a podium position himself in Paris, and that's why he tried to jump away from Bradley Wiggins. They've left Christian van der Velde behind. Now Bradley Wiggins, if he wants to get himself up to the podium, has to ride. There's Johan Brunel coming up alongside and giving Lance Armstrong a little bit of advice.
Well, Wiggins is the man just on the edge of the time gaps at the moment, and it could still keep Armstrong up there in second place, or Cloden could just jump over him, but they'd still have a possibility here of an Astana 1-2-3, followed by Schleck, and Wiggins would probably slip to 5th overall. But the time gaps are what matters, because Wiggins will recoup a lot of lost time tomorrow in the time trial.
Frank Schleck burying himself for his brother here this afternoon at the Tour. Frank himself in 8th place at the start of the day, looking for 3.5 minutes, but he doesn't really care about that at all. What he cares about is trying to get Andy, the younger brother of the Schleck family, onto the podium in Paris, and to do that he knows he needs to get a buffer of time before the individual time trial tomorrow around Lake Annecy.
But it's very, very disconcerting. Andy is playing his trump card at the moment, and he's going absolutely nowhere from the Maillot Jaune. And they're going to have to really release something even better on the last climb of the day before the descent down. Contador knows he's only got to watch and wait. He hasn't got to do anything. And the presence of Cloden is the trump card, because Cloden can run away here and push Andy Schleck further back as they come to the last part of the day.
Yeah, Cloden started the day in 4th place in the overall standings at 2 minutes and 17 seconds behind Alberto Contador, and he could be the trump card. As you can see, Frank Schleck digging deep as they come up to the summit of this climb. 1, 2, 3, 4 riders over the top there. Contador in 3rd place, Cloden in 4th, and a little bit further down this is the group, and again it looks as if Christian van der Velde has recovered and dragged himself back into this race, probably dragged himself and turned himself inside out to come and help Bradley Wiggins.
To me, that indicates that Lance turned off and Wiggins couldn't raise it anymore, so he got back on Christian van der Velde. Nibali also back on. These are the 4 riders. The leaders are over the top, already zipping up the jerseys for the plunge to the bottom of the Col de la Colombière, the last climb of the day. Wiggins, I think, would have expected to have been in this position, so he's now got to fight himself out of it. The clock's counting as they head up towards the summit. Schleck, Contador and Cloden was the order over the top. The USA flag will no doubt have spotted Lance Armstrong as they head up to that banner now. And there's an attack here from Nibali. He wants the king of the mountain points, I guess, and he's going to go over in 5th, and he might try to plunge down, but they're onto him. Van der Velde, Wiggins, Armstrong, in that order.
Well, they've got a slight descent now as they move away from the summit of the Col de Rome, and they drop down maybe for about 4 kilometres, and then they start the final ascent up to the summit of the Col de la Colombière, and that is a 7.5 kilometre ascent. And at the top, Phil, the last 5 kilometres are in excess of 10%, and if Armstrong has got the legs, that might be the point where he could jump clear of Wiggins.
So they're over the top of the Col de Rome. It's not the end of the climbs. The Col de la Colombière is slightly shorter at 7 kilometres, but Frank Schleck has put everybody now under pressure.
So looking at the race situation, we've got the 4 leaders now: Frank Schleck, Andy Schleck, Andreas Cloden and Alberto Contador. 2 riders from Astana, 2 riders from Team Saxo Bank. They've got a 1:07 advantage over 4 chasers: Armstrong, van der Velde, Wiggins and Vincenzo Nibali. A little bit further back there's still Jürgen van den Broek, and looking at 2 minutes 40 seconds is Carlos Sastre and Franco Pellizotti.
Now a little bit of easing here by the white jersey. You never know if he eases enough. They'll be back on him here. And Frank offering a bottle there to his brother. He's going to take up the pacemaking to try and keep his brother just a little bit fresh. He's got to try a single individual attack that takes him clear of these three on the next climb.
Well, that's what he has to do, but I don't think Philly's going to put any pressure at all onto the shoulders of Alberto Contador, who looked very easy on that climb. A little bit further back, this is Roman Kreuziger. Alongside him, just a little bit further back, is Sastre. Christophe Lemaivel trying to defend his position as best-placed Frenchman.
Well, he's still in amongst the leaderboard here as Kreuziger brings them up over the top of the Col de Rome. Further down too, this is the next group on the road.
Maxime Montfort just at the back there, wearing number 77 of Vladimir Carpets, moving up through the crowd here. Looks as if this is a great move by the rider from France. There you can see Christophe Lemaivel suffering to stay up there.
And try and keep what is, for the French, a very significant position. If you can say you're the best French rider in the Tour de France. Yellow jersey going through. A little bit of a move there. And Andries Cloden nearly made a mistake that took him out of that. Now, this is the descent now. I think the risk will be taken from the second group on the road to try and get back on terms before they go up the next mountain. The gap, 1 minute and 11 seconds back to the Armstrong-Wiggins group.
Well, if I was Andries Cloden, I wouldn't ride behind Frank Schleck on the descent. This is further back down the road. It's now 1 minute and 12 seconds to the Lance Armstrong-Bradley-Wiggins group. Armstrong's face is not giving anything away at all, Phil. I know deep down, though, he would like to be able to jump away from this group and try and get across the gap, but he will not do anything to cause a bad thing for the team. For him, it's the most important thing is for the team to try and get the victory. And what they're doing here tactically is leapfrogging somebody over another, because at the end of the day, I can see the overall. There's a problem here for Sastre.
And Sastre's got a back wheel puncture there. Well, when your luck is out, I guess. And Sastre there having to take a wheel. Already losing ground, but he's lost a big group there that might have made a bit of ground on the Col de Colombier. That really is sad there, and not a great time. We've frozen the picture too. That's not us, by the way. 26.2 kilometres to go. Up with the leaders now. Contador marking the chase down here. He won't want a hard, fast descent.
Well, the big advantage he's got, Phil, in a team like Team Astana is he's got a teammate alongside him there, Andries Cloden, who yesterday was kept at the back of the race for a long time to make sure he had plenty of energy for this day today. Confirmation over the top, Schleck, Frank first, Andy Schleck second, a little bit further down in fourth place, Cloden, Nibali and Van der Velde next over in fifth and sixth. Wiggins still up there ahead of Armstrong.
That was the order over the line. But as you watch these riders go down now, they've just got to hang on in there and get onto the Col de Colombier.
Well, the Col de la Colombière is that climb just in front of the riders. You might just have glimpsed it as we now go back to the second group on the road. They're now looking for 1 minute and 20 seconds. Armstrong just sitting there, allowing Nibali to do the pacemaking on the front. He's not going anywhere for the moment, the American rider in this second group. Armstrong here is actually losing his second place in the overall classification, but what he will be doing by sitting here and waiting is actually creating a situation whereby at the end of the day, Team Astana will be first, second and third in the overall standings. At the start of the day, Armstrong had a fairly comfortable advantage over Andy Schleck. Andy Schleck was at 2:26, almost a minute behind Lance Armstrong, who was in second place. But that is far from over. We've still got the next climb of the day to come as we plunge away from the Col de Rome here and set ourselves up for the final climb of the day to go up to the summit of the Col de la Colombière. A nasty day and very tricky and precarious on these descents. You have to make sure that all of your tyre pressures are correct as we go under 25 kilometres to go. 25 kilometres to go now, and these are the four leaders.
Just looking at the four riders at the moment, they're on the descent of the Col de Rome. They are the four leaders. They're being chased by the four chasers, including Lance Armstrong and Bradley Wiggins. And they need to really take a few risks now, Paul, to try and get the gap together so they can go up the mountain as a group of 8.
Well, one man seems to have flown the coop there. In fact, there is Vincenzo Nibali. He's gone straight out of this group and he's taking all kinds of risks on this descent. He realizes he too can be pulling himself back in towards a white jersey competition challenger. So the two riders from Garmin Slipstream are doing the pacemaking, trying to limit their losses, which are currently 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Armstrong wisely sitting at the back of the group of three here, just watching, but the odds at the end of the day, it's all down to Wiggins to see if they can close it down. It's saying that at the moment the four leaders are slightly pulling it out to 1 minute and 19 seconds or so.
Well, Vincenzo Nibali has taken serious risks on this part of the race, Phil, because he's gone straight out of this group and he's way round the corner, about 15 seconds ahead of these riders. He's obviously using his youth instead of the better part of valor to take big risks around these corners to see how much closer he can pull himself to this leading group of four. But he's got to try and bridge a gap of around about 1 minute and 10 seconds. This is the left-hand turn now onto the slopes of the Col de la Colombière, and it's 7.5 kilometres to the summit. The first 3 kilometres are not so bad, if I can say not so bad, at 5 and 6% average gradient. But the final 5 kilometres are all in excess of 10%, and that should be the advantage to the climbers.
It's a long explosive climb towards the summit, and then the 15-kilometre plunge brings them back down to us in Grand Bournon. Now, final showdown for Andy Schleck. Time must be gained. He's getting time at the moment on Bradley Wiggins, who hasn't exactly written himself out the script by any manner of means, which means he could be climbing into a podium position. But unlucky for him, Cloden is with this group as well as Contador.
They're having a little chat there, Cloden and Alberto Contador, and I wonder if he was asking, do you want to try and win the stage here this afternoon, or should we just sit here and allow the Schleck brothers to do most of the pacemaking? 1:18 back to the Armstrong-Wiggins group. Contador, Cloden, Schleck and Andy and Frank are in this leading group of four.
Well, Andy Schleck is a huge talent, and he's such a young man that he knows he's going to win the Tour one day. He was hoping it might be this day, but he hasn't been able to get rid of an immensely strong climber from Spain. Alberto Contador, he's not his job to do any pacemaking. The others are attacking him. These are the three chasers now, and it's still the two riders from Garmin Slipstream, Wiggins and Van der Velde, followed by Armstrong as they go now onto the lower slopes. There's Nibali, he's back in now. They've come down quite quickly.
They certainly have. They pulled themselves back to the rider who's second placed in the young rider competition, Vincenzo Nibali. Frank Schleck now has to sacrifice himself for his brother Andy. He realizes it's all about time, and that's not a bad collection of jerseys.
No, that is rather a lot of jerseys there. They've done well as the Tour de France passes them now as we climb up. We are looking now at the riders up front there who are doing tremendously well, but is there something in the tank yet for Bradley Wiggins? He's relying very heavily on a brilliant Christian Van der Velde today. He finished fourth himself in the Tour last year, but he went out really with a big chance this year with a bad crash in the Giro d'Italia. Armstrong sitting, waiting, the perfect teammate.
Well, I tell you what, Van der Velde is riding a perfect teammate as well here. He's been in difficulty in this Tour de France field because of that very nasty accident in the Giro, but he realizes he has the experience to be the pilot fish for his teammate Bradley Wiggins along the early slopes here of the Col de la Colombière.
Schleck has got to make a move and lift the pace somehow. Well, he sets this tempo, but he's not put Contador under any pressure at all. These boys have still got to try and close in. They're locked in. It's 1 minute 19. The four are back together again. So they've started the climb, and that's the gap, 79 seconds. Well, some of it, there's no doubt Wiggins can get back in the time trial. And Wiggins, don't forget, is riding with Armstrong, Paul, and he will get over Armstrong possibly in the time trial.
Well, that's a question we will answer tomorrow, isn't
Indeed.
it? Because I have a feeling Armstrong's legs are not too bad here in the Tour, and the final time trial of any Tour de France is always a strange one, with specific motivations coming into play. This is the next group on the road. It was originally the group of Carlos Sastre, although we don't know after his flat tyre whether he's managed to get back into this group or not. But they are losing themselves at 2 minutes on the Armstrong group, 3 minutes on this group with the yellow jersey and Andy Schleck.
Well, this is a battle of the senior statesmen now, and these are the riders who are going to keep the overall positions tonight. The order might change slightly. We'll see. The finish flag flies. Cloden is the big mystery. He's sitting there waiting. Alongside, he could be up into second place tonight, the way this race is going. Schleck might be up into fourth or third, but it won't be any higher because he's got these two riders sitting behind him.
Well, the two riders from Astana do not need Phil to do anything at all. They're in the best position in the overall classification. They are in the the lead of the Schleck brothers. It's up to the Schleck brothers to try and dislodge Alberto Contador if they can. Alberto Contador is actually on the defensive. As we look here, we can see this group is the group of Vladimir Karpets. I'm trying to see if Carlos Sastre was in that group. I couldn't see number 1.
Number 61 was there. That was the winner yesterday, Mikel Astolosa. He's still riding well, but he's a long way down the road now. 1 minute 20. They've nudged it up another second, all down to the work at the moment of Andy Schleck. Frank is in second place. The other two are watching and waiting in and out of the saddle. They don't look under pressure on the climb of the Col de Colombière.
You've got an incredible amount of talent in this leading group of 4, but look at Alberto Contador. He just does not look under any kind of pressure or any difficulty at all. Just gets out of the saddle, ticking over those pedals at an extremely high cadence, and he knows that the big advantage he's got, Phil, is to have a teammate there in the form of Andreas Kloden. Kloden, look at the tempo that he's got. He's just sitting there, his face not giving anything away.
Well, Contador, his signature really is the way he's often out of the saddle, and he can accelerate with a kick of those legs and take it up another notch. If he's allowing Andy Schleck to set the pace like this, then watch out towards the summit. Contador might say goodbye and just go for the top and plunge to the bottom on his own.
Well, it's the Schleck brothers who are trying to take advantage of this, and they're not currently, Phil, trying to take the yellow jersey. What they're trying to do is trying to take themselves into a podium position. If they want to win this bike race overall, they need to attack Alberto Contador to lift the pace, change the pace, but I don't think they can.
That 20-kilometre means we are 5 kilometres from the top and 20 from the finishing line now. 5 kilometres or 3 miles is all Andy Schleck has now, and he's not moved Contador at all, and neither has he moved Andreas Kloden. And Lance Armstrong just keeping an eye here. This is the benefit of a strong team. Armstrong watching where the Garmin rider Bradley Wiggins goes, and he looks as though he's coming out of any pain he was in. He looks very relaxed now, Lance.
We're coming into the steepest part of the climb now, the Col de la Colombière. It's all above 10% average gradient from here to the summit of the climb before they'll go over the top and go down through the small ski resort of the Chinaillon before the final descent down into the Grand Bornand.
Andy Schleck, a little bit depressed, I think. Every time he looks over his shoulder, he's towing the maillot jaune of the Tour de France, who never appears to be grimacing at all. Every time he looks round, Frank Schleck looks round to see where is Wiggins. Well, he can't see him, so that's a good sign. 5 kilometres to go for the 4 leaders on the road. It's been a shadow boxing day all day till we hit the Col de Rome. That's where we expected the action. This is group number 2. And again, the passenger here is Lance Armstrong. He's got 2 teammates up front.
Well, 5 kilometres for the 4 leaders to the summit of the climb as Vincenzo Nibali puts his hand up there. He's summoning his car forward. It probably may well be looking for a final drink of the day. And again, the turns are being swapped here by Andy Schleck and Frank Schleck. And if they want to win this bike race, they need to try and accelerate. But I don't think they can. The 2 riders from Astana are ahead of both of them in the overall classification. They have absolutely no reason to attack.
4¼ kilometres to the summit now as Frank Schleck puffs some blows and wonders just what does he have to do. Yellow jersey there, sitting there for Alberto Contador. He's never come to the front. His job is to counter the attacks, not make them at the moment, but he might try to take advantage if he gets to the top with these boys for company.
Andy Schleck now in the white jersey, the best young rider. That's a competition that he wants to win. His closest challenger is in the group behind with Lance Armstrong at 1 minute and 33 seconds. He could be consolidating his advantage there, but I think in the back of his mind, what he's thinking more about is getting time between himself and Bradley Wiggins before the individual time trial. And that's the reason why this man has gone out. The second group now with Lance Armstrong, Bradley Wiggins and Christian van der Velde go through the 5 kilometre banner at 1½ minutes.
Well, again, the pacemaking being done by Christian van der Velde. He fought his way back to this group when he was dropped, and he's gone straight to the front. Welcome back, Lance. I think that's about the right word. I hope he saw it now, because he's climbing steadily here. He's not under any pace difficulties from these riders. There's almost a smile on his face there. His 2 teammates are up front. He's up there. And the top 3 podium places could be Astana. I would think I would be smiling.
Well, before the start of the Tour de France, Phil, somebody said to Lance, will you be happy with a top 3 finish? And he said no, he didn't really want a top 3 finish. He wanted the top finish. And then the other day was asked, would you sign up now for a place in the top 3 in Paris? He said, I'd sign on the dotted line immediately.
Well, it's coming his way, I think, the way he's riding just now. On the defensive here, he's getting an armchair ride up, if you can, on these hills. Same must be said for Contador and Cloden. And the Schlecks might find they're on the rebound of a series of attacks from Astana before the end of the day. 20 kilometres to go now. This is Chavanel just unhitching at the back of the race. He tried to get up in that break. He failed. These boys now would just like the stage to end, I think.
Oh, I think a lot of them would like to be over the summit of the Col de la Colombière just right now. There's Christophe Lemaivel, number 106, the best placed Frenchman in the overall standings, and Stéphane Goubert, one of the oldest Frenchmen at 39 years of age.
Frank's had a little bit of recovery time. He's come back, not afraid to work. They are two delightful cyclists, these two Luxembourgers, looking at each other with brotherly love in their eyes, but they love each other so much. They work everything, they race well together, they can sense each other's moves, and now Frank has done enough and I think indicated, I'm in trouble.
Watch out here, because there's a little bit of discussion going on between number 21 and number 23, Contador and Andreas Cloden. I keep casting my mind back to the fact that Andreas Cloden has a little bit of revenge to try and get on the Grand Bornand, because in 2005 he was pipped on the line for a victory by a certain Lance Armstrong, and wouldn't that be the strangest thing about history coming back to haunt people if he got the victory on this occasion?
And how often does that happen in a big race like the Tour de France? Different teams then, of course, at the time, but now they're on the same team. And Cloden moving up onto the shoulder of his teammate. The pace is visibly accelerated again, and he is applying a little bit more of the tourniquet. More serious face perhaps on Contador, but they don't look as though they're under any problem at all, but they are moving away. It's 1:37 now to the chase group of Wiggins.
3, because Christian Van der Velde has finally given his all for his teammate. He's done all of the pacing that he can. He mustered all kinds of courage to do that, and now he's just said, Brad, if you want the podium in Paris, you have to now take the responsibility yourself. Wiggins now left on his own to do the tempo in that group behind. This, though, is the big group of the Tour de France this afternoon. L'Étape à Rennes, the queen of stages that we are witnessing here, and it's the Schleck brothers doing what they promised they would do, Phil. They said, we're going to go into the Alps. The last week of this race is going to be something very special, and it's turning out to be right.
Well, they've just got to get time on Wiggins, and they've got to get a reasonable amount of time because of the 40-kilometre flat time trial tomorrow. The Schlecks are not great time trial riders, but also Schleck is increasing his lead here in the white jersey. He won this competition last year. But Cloden and Contador have done nothing here except follow the wheels, and that for me leaves the door open for a possible late attack.
Well, there may well be, but there's a very long descent down into the finish of the Grand Bornand. They have absolutely no reason to attack at all, and with the work being done by the Schlecks, they're opening up their time gaps too. Well, quick calculation is currently Lance Armstrong is dropping away from a podium position, because that podium will move onto the shoulders of Andy Schleck with the time gaps as they are. But that's before the individual time trial tomorrow, and I am sure that Lance Armstrong will do a much better time trial than Andy Schleck. This is Christian Van der Velde.
Van der Velde is slowly slipping away here. Well, the 40 seconds that Schleck was behind Wiggins is well wiped out now, and he's doubled it, so he's now got about 45 seconds in hand. That wouldn't be enough in the time trial not to win back, so he's just got to keep plugging away, Bradley Wiggins, hope he can limit the escape, because these boys up front have kept the pressure on the Schleck brothers, and I don't know how much they've got left.
Well, they need to keep it on. They can only really build up time on this last couple of kilometres, Phil, because after that we plunge over the top of the Col de la Colombière. We go down through the small ski resort of the Chinaillon and then into the Grand Bornand. Bradley Wiggins, I don't think, will pull back much time on the descent of this very rapid final few kilometres from the top of the Colombière.
Well, he's got 2k to the top and 15 down the other side. He's still riding very smoothly. We never thought we would be commentating about Bradley Wiggins at this level of the Tour de France. In any case, before the race started, the odds that you would have got on him would have been absolutely enormous. But right now, he's riding like a real part of the Tour, a real mountain climber. And he's right in amongst the best climbers in the Tour. Must be very daunting to have Lance Armstrong sitting on your back wheel right now.
I would think so, but Bradley Wiggins now has got to get himself into the mind frame of just setting the tempo, not wondering about who's behind him or who's second behind him. He has to just try and conserve his position. He's losing time, though, because it's now out to 1 minute and 50 seconds, and he's losing the possibility of a podium position. He really needs to start riding himself into the ground, and he's going to probably have to take a few risks on the descent down into the Grand Bornand.
I think you're absolutely right, and 2 minutes would be a little bit too much, I think. We're going back to Bradley Wiggins right now. What's happening here? Contador's moved. He decided to go it alone. Now, can there be a reaction from Andy after all the work that man has done? Contador is now going for the top. He's allowed himself just under 2 kilometres to the summit, and he's going for the win. And he's got a terrific lead so quickly, Paul. And again, Schleck has got to answer. And Frank, what's happened to Andreas?
Well, Andreas Kloden was caught out by that acceleration there. Andy Schleck now with his brother Frank has gone off in pursuit of Alberto Contador. Contador testing the waters here this afternoon, but he hasn't got the gap on the two Schleck brothers. He's looking back now to see that he hasn't opened it up, and Andy Schleck has got himself a little bit angry there, and he's pulled himself back to the wheel of the yellow jersey.
Turning out not to be a great move, because they've shed the Astana rider. That was how the move went. Kloden looked down at the same time, and it was a terrific acceleration, but that's what this man is famous for, is the acceleration on the mountains. But now all he's done is get rid of his own teammate.
Well, he's looking back to see where Andreas Kloden is, and maybe that's not going to be quite so good for the team this afternoon, because if he has a problem now, it's 2 against 1.
Well, Andy's going to say thanks very much if he can push this advantage home, because he might get a higher place in the overall classification. Now here comes Andreas Kloden, and he looks as though he hasn't. He's lost his rhythm a little bit, but he's coming back, I think.
Well, watch out for Kloden. He's an experienced professional. He would take advantage of the descent to try and pull himself back up into that leading group of 4. He's not too far away from catching up to the summit. The two Schleck brothers here are riding an incredible race. They promised that they would set on fire the Alps, and they've done that this afternoon. They did it yesterday, and they'll do it again today.
Well, I'll tell you what, they did well to raise their game to bring back Alberto Contador with an acceleration like that. Contador, I think, is biting his lip a little bit now because it didn't work. It would have looked a great move if it had worked, but all it did was rid them of the teammate here for Astana, and that's now, he's rather hoping he climbs back up to these two.
Keeps looking over his shoulder, wants to know where his teammate Andreas Kloden is going to be, and he comes up alongside the Schleck brothers once again. I wonder if he's got that acceleration one more time as he comes up to the summit. Andy Schleck is a great performer. We're looking really, Phil, here at the 2 best climbers in the Tour de France. I suppose I should say the best 3 climbers, because Frank Schleck has been on fire this afternoon as well.
Schleck can climb. He won the Alpine Alpe d'Huez leg of the Tour de France, heading up towards the end of the climb now. And a little bit unfortunate they shed Andreas Kloden there, but maybe he will climb back on the descent perhaps. The Schlecks are going to lead down. Contador will follow. This is Andreas Kloden. Once he sees a kilometre to go, he might just apply a little bit more effort, but that gap is still opening, I think. It's hard to tell from this distance.
No, I think he's coming back there. He's riding sensibly. You can see the cars in front of him. They're just around the corner, number 23. He's previously finished 2nd overall in the Tour de France, and he now needs to remember that he could be climbing up into 2nd place overall tonight as well. The German fans are there giving him a little bit of encouragement. The bikes are just around the corner for Kloden, and if he goes over the summit of this climb, Phil, with a 20 or 30-second deficit, he should be able to close that gap on the descent.
And it's a flat-out descent like it was yesterday, but it's only 15 kilometres down to the bottom. But it's virtually a descent again all the way to the finishing line. The little end of it is just slightly uphill. Well, he's done all he could do, I think, Andy Schleck. Whether it's good enough, I don't know. He's certainly improved his overall position tonight, that's for sure. Remember, we got the big showdown on Mont Ventoux after the time trial. What happened there now?
Currently, he's climbed up into 3rd place overall, and he's got a little bit of an advantage. In fact, he was only looking for 9 seconds over Andreas Kloden, so it may well be that Alberto Contador has actually created a little bit of a tactical turmoil for Team Astana here, because Andy Schleck could be climbing up into 2nd place.
When it would have been the other way around. There's Johan Brunel now, has come up here behind Andreas Kloden. Kloden has been sort of a semi-protected rider right through the Alps, and that was why, because today he was meant to do what he's done and go in the move. I'm not sure Contador was meant to attack him like that.
Maybe not. He keeps looking over his shoulder. Bear in mind, Kloden is a very good individual time trialist, Phil, so even if he loses his 2nd place overall tonight to Andreas Kloden, he could Andy Schleck, he could reverse that tomorrow in the individual time trial, because again, I think we will see a complete change tomorrow night, and that's exactly what the organisers of the Tour de France wanted this year, to keep the suspense right up until the Mont Ventoux.
Well, they may have missed out because it's rather opening up a little bit now. Contador is looking extremely strong. Lance Armstrong, who let these two riders attack, is at 2¼ minutes now. And I think this is now turning into be a little bit serious for Bradley Wiggins, who is doing all of the work back there with Armstrong following him as we approach the summit of the Col de la Colombière now.
There in the yellow jersey, Alberto Contador is inside of the final kilometre of the Col de la Colombière. All of the work on this climb here has been done by the two Schleck brothers, Andy on the front in the white jersey and Frank in second position. Contador, he looks to me as if he's under a little bit of pressure here this afternoon. He didn't have that zip that he normally has to get out and away from these riders, but these two riders are great alpine climbers. Let's not forget Frank Schleck in second position, a winner a couple of years ago of a great stage up to the summit of the Alpe d'Huez.
Well, you can tell by the pressure going on those pedals now. This is a tough part of that climb here. Swedish flags are flying on the right. He goes through at 1 kilometre. Andreas Kloden, the cars are ahead. He can see them. It must be so frustrating to be just behind and can't quite get on terms. These are the three leaders now, and it looks as though Alberto was, I thought, was going to nudge another jump then, but he sat down.
I don't think he's got a second attack in those legs here this afternoon, Phil. He keeps looking over his shoulders, wondering if he's made a mistake there in dropping his teammate. Kloden is losing huge chunks of time. It's out to 50 seconds. The head of the race now is Contador, Andy Schleck and Frank Schleck. It's Frank on the front currently with Andy in second position, climbing up to second place overall tonight.
Well, Luxembourg have never had two riders at this level of the sport. They've had great individual climbers like Charlie Gore, but these two boys have won a lot of big races and they are both developing as great riders. Andy says, people tell me I'm the most talented. I don't agree. Frank has got a lot of talent. They just love results. Now here he comes up towards the where are we now?
15 kilometres
we've
to go.
gone right back down the road here because this is Andreas Kloden. 15 kilometres from the finish. Now he knows he's got to give a special turn of effort here. Contador could do with him being back up there.
He certainly could, and this man will take risks. It's a fairly tricky descent, the Col de la Colombière, with lots of corners that a man like Andreas Kloden can use to try and halve that gap that he's got. Andy Schleck again coming to take the pace. These two Schleck brothers are riding a phenomenal day here in the Alps. They did it yesterday, and again they've come out and done it today. They know they need to get time over the man leading this group, number 58, Bradley Wiggins. Started the day in third place overall in the classification and was scaring Team Astana and was scaring Team Saxo Bank because they didn't know how he was going to perform in the mountains.
1 kilometre to go. Now the group here of Wiggins and Lance Armstrong is only 1 minute and 30 seconds behind Andreas Kloden. The sped is 2 minutes and 33.
Look at the face of Andy Schleck, and they're just willing this race to be over, Phil. They just want to get to the top of this climb. Andy Schleck is looking for 2 minutes and 26 seconds on Alberto Contador. Frank Schleck is looking for 3:25. They are sharing turns, the two Schleck brothers at the front of this group, because they're not really concerned about Contador. They know they've not been able to get rid of him, but what they are concerned about is Andreas Kloden behind and also Bradley Wiggins even further down the mountain.
Schleck, Andy that is, could be climbing onto a podium now, and it's all a question of whether he can hang on in the time trial tomorrow, because it should go back to his advantage on Mont Ventoux, where he can finish off and maybe step up on the podium in Paris. These last few days are dying out, and they're just throwing everyone at Wiggins now. Wiggins is not being able to attack. That's the attack by Armstrong. Wiggins could not react. This is a deja vu from yesterday. Now can Lance Armstrong? He's got to bridge a minute to Andreas Kloden.
Well, he's got to bridge a 2.5 minutes, and he waited until the moment when he thought that Wiggins had absolutely nothing left in those legs of his, and he decided, right, I'm off now. We've got Vincenzo Nibali is trying to get across to Armstrong. Armstrong was waiting for the steepest part of the climb. He wants to be able to ride down this descent on his own and try and bridge as much of that deficit as he can to try and keep himself as close as possible to a podium position in Paris.
Well, this is a brilliant piece of riding by Armstrong. He has played absolutely the team captain and the player for his teammates to go and get the gains. And when they sold everybody down below, he slipped his gear there, but he sorted it out now. And he's now going to try and fly across this gap on his own, as he did yesterday. And he's making it towards the top of the Col de Colombière. Then the plunge down. Lance Armstrong is fighting to hold that second place. we really do have a situation where Astana could become the first team since 1914 to place 3 members of the same team on the podium in Paris.
Well, Andreas Kloden now, Phil, getting to the top of this climb as he summits the Col de la Colombière now. He's looking for 1 minute and 14 seconds on the leading group of 3. Armstrong is scorching up the climb behind him. He is now looking at being the 5th place rider on the road, and he has got nobody with him at all. No more Vincenzo Nibali, no more Bradley Wiggins. He is riding with the cadence that was his from 1999 to 2005. You know, the great thing about a champion is even when you're down sometimes, you can never be out. You can always fight back.
9 miles or 15 kilometres the descent now. Armstrong still on the way up here. He's going to try and reach Kloden if he can on the descent. But the Schleck brothers have been superb, but only Andy Schleck is really gaining. Frank's lost a little bit of time. These boys here from Astana are in a position to wipe out the Tour de France now. Armstrong is free to fly as he comes over the top in 5th place over the Col de Colombière. Now it's a do the zip up and get everybody organised and plunge to the valley below. The Alps are now behind us all. Armstrong there quickly wrestling with his drip. He's got it up. Now he's going to have to whip through those. This is quite a fast descent, this, isn't it, Paul?
Well, it's a very fast descent. The first part here as we go down into Chinaillon, Phil, is very technical. You can see the discussions going on here between Frank Schleck, Andy Schleck and Alberto Contador. Contador says, no, guys, I'm not going to work with you at all. There's 2 of you and there's 1 of me. I've got teammates behind. He may well be deciding this afternoon that he's not going to try and get himself the stage victory, and that may be what that discussion was about. The technical part is the first 2 or 3 kilometres of the descent as they get into Chinaillon. After that, it becomes a much faster running down towards the finish of the Grand Bornand.
Well, the 2 brilliant Schleck brothers have done everything they could physically do today. Only Alberto Contador has held them in sight, and he's not going anywhere right now. The chase is on to try and bring together 5 riders at the finish. It will be 3 Astanas versus 2 Saxo Bank as they try to squeeze everything out of here. Very, very fast descent this, and hit those brakes heavy on that bottom hairpin bend. This is now Andreas Kloden on the way down as well, trying to catch a sight as to where that yellow jersey is just up the road.
Well, Andreas Kloden is down in a time trial position. In the early part of his career, Armstrong was an extremely good descender, and we'll see here whether he's taking all kinds of risks here, Phil. You can see the back wheel bouncing a fraction. He's going to try and get himself across to his teammate Andreas Kloden, and he's only already just looking for 30 seconds to the German.
Well, he's pulled back 10 seconds since he started the descent here, Lance Armstrong, to reach Andreas Kloden at the finish. This really is one-on-one, just like it was a couple of years ago when, in the end, Armstrong got the better of Kloden on the line. But now they're friends. They've got to team up and chase the 3 leaders.
I can only hope that at this moment some of the French press, Phil, are watching this with the same eyes that you and I are watching this, because this is a great champion. It's great to see someone come back to the sport the way he's doing and riding, first of all, as a teammate to protect the position of Alberto Contador, and then trying to ride himself back into a podium position in Paris.
We have just gone under 10 kilometres to go, 9.8 to be precise. These are 3 leaders. Contador saying something here to Andy, and I don't know what he's saying. He might be saying you can have the stage because you're not gaining any time on me. But he may also know that Kloden and Armstrong are coming down this mountain as well.
Well, there's no reason at all for Alberto Contador to get himself a stage victory in this final day over the Alps, but it is important for him to get time over everybody else, and what they were looking to do this afternoon was get time on Bradley Wiggins. He's currently got himself around about a 2-minute buffer now over Bradley Wiggins. 4th rider on the road, Andreas Kloden, coming around the corner very shortly. He will probably have company, and he'll be in the shape of his own teammate Lance Armstrong, and he probably doesn't even know that yet.
Well, he's driving, and so too is Armstrong. If he looks over to his left there, he'll see Kloden making that bend right now.
This is a man possessed in the Tour de France this year. This is the way to go down a mountain fast, to keep the cadence nice and high. Look for the corners. When you approach the corner, drop down the gears a fraction so you're in the right gear to accelerate when you come out of it, taking yourself back up to 60, 70, maybe even 80 kilometers an hour. This is the next group on the road, containing Ronaldo Nocentini, Roman Kreuziger, Christophe Nemervel, but they've lost themselves a huge chunk of time, probably 5 minutes.
Over the top for this back group here with Mikel Astelosa yesterday saluting the crowd as a winner in Bourg-Saint-Maurice. Today he just wants to get to the finish So does Andreas Kloden here as he tries to close in on the leaders at the moment. Kloden is racing at 1:38. I don't think he can close that. Armstrong is racing at about 33 seconds behind him.
Well, 31 on the front doing the pacemaking. Andy Schleck, there you can see Contador saying to Frank, come on, you do the pacemaking. I can't really work with you guys here because I've got two teammates behind and we may well be losing a podium position. You have to do the pacemaking. He may well have come with some kind of a truce at 10 kilometres to go for Armstrong. He's looking for 2:15.
Well, the thing is that it might well be that Contador will not contest the sprint because Contador is being pulled away from Bradley Wiggins by the two riders from Luxembourg, opening up an advantage, which he's already got one, but it's stretching now, and that might stop Wiggins reaching Contador or anybody else in the time trial tomorrow. So he'll appreciate the hard work by the Schlecks, and he's never looked like being dropped by them either.
This is the small ski resort just above the Grand Bornand at 7 kilometres to go. It's known as the Chinaillon, shaking the lactic acid out of his arms there, out of his legs there. Lance Armstrong has really done a daredevil descent here. He's about 30 seconds behind his teammate here, Andreas Kloden. This team, Team Astana, really have been a dominant team at the Tour de France this year. Andy Schleck now taking it around that corner one more time ahead of his brother Frank. Alberto Contador just sitting there in the yellow jersey, consolidating his position over everybody else in the bike race except Andy Schleck and Frank.
It's a little bit sad that that acceleration by Contador got rid of his own teammate, because two could have confused the issue on the run into the Grand Bornand. That's the way it is, though, and look at this. Nibali has just come up to Lance Armstrong, so Wiggins now has blown, I would think, back there, because Nibali's left him as well, and now there are two chasing Kloden.
Well, there are two chasing Kloden at 30 seconds at 6.2 kilometres to go to the finish. Alberto Contador looks resplendent in yellow. He's taking good lines around these corners, just sitting on the back wheel of Frank Schleck. The Schleck brothers have lived up to their promises to light up the Alps this afternoon.
They started 2:26 and just over 3 minutes overnight, but they're closing in, but not on this rider because they're going down all together in the same time. Spread across the groups, 1:52 to Kloden, 2:20 to Armstrong and Nibali. We're not getting a time check on the exact location of Bradley Wiggins, but he's behind.
Well, Wiggins could make a daredevil descent. He's a very good bike handler, and he may well be starting to close in on Lance Armstrong and Vincenzo Nibali, although Armstrong was going very fast indeed. Fourth man on the road here, Andreas Kloden, is trying to keep himself in with a chance of a podium position, but he's lost a huge chunk of time. He's almost 2 minutes behind the Schleck tandem with Alberto Contador.
That's right, 1:53. He's going the wrong way towards Le Grand Bornand at the moment, and he might well see his teammate come up to him, because I make it just about 27 seconds, the difference between Kloden and Nibali and Armstrong. 5 kilometres to go for the leaders, all downhill.
Well, there is Alberto Contador consolidating his position this afternoon. Looks very calm and collected, although he did his acceleration did get rid of his own teammate, Andreas Kloden. Now he has to play the defensive role and wonder what's going on behind. Armstrong and Nibali now are not very much more, Phil, than about 25 seconds behind Andreas Kloden. I wonder if they'll link up before the finish line.
It's a possibility, because they've still got quite a long descent here. Le Grand Bornand is down in the valley off to our right now. They come literally off the mountain. We can see the cars. In fact, I can see the riders for the first time. Looking out of my commentary box, they are about 400 metres above me, but they are coming down the mountain and they are flying as they head down into the valley below. No mistakes here. Careful descending by these boys. I take my hat off to the Schlecks. They knew they had to attack today. There was no further opportunity, and they played all of their cards. It's worked in every department except they've still got the maillot jaune with them, but they've done everything right. 4 kilometres to go.
Everything is played out to perfection for the Schleck brothers, apart from distancing the yellow jersey. Now I'm not sure what that was all about, as Nibali now tries to go into that corner. Armstrong comes up under his inside.
I'm wondering if perhaps Lance has backed off again because Nibali has caught him. I'm not too sure, but he's starting to sprint down the mountain again. And that's the swing across the road. Oh, no, this is real time. So this sharp right-hander then as they continue to fall off the mountain. The gap between these two is now 22 seconds, with Cloden in front by that amount.
Well, Nibali started the day in 6th place in the overall classification at 2 minutes and 51 seconds behind Andy Schleck, behind Cloden, behind Lance Armstrong. But I think Armstrong may once again be starting to play the little bit of team role here, because he knows that he's got 2 teammates ahead of him, and one of those is Andreas Cloden at about 20 seconds.
Well, now you know the advantage of a big team in the race, where they've got so many strong riders. They can play different cards here. Cloden is going up the overall classification tonight. Lance Armstrong, and I haven't got time to work it out, might just be holding on to a top 3 position. But he's not prepared to endanger. That's a real right hand as it brings us into the town centre now, as we race down 2.5, 3/4 kilometres to go. The Maillot Jaune is in town. The brothers are in front. There's no doubt in my mind now, Contador will not contest the sprint. He's been towed to the victory, I would say, in the Tour de France today.
I think he certainly has. He'd opened up the gaps quite massively because of the assault by the Schleck brothers on the slopes of, first of all, the Col de Rome, and then followed up by the accelerations on the Col de la Colombière. Andy Schleck here, I think, is probably going to try and lead the sprint out for his brother Frank. Frank is a little bit further down in the overall classification, so right now, if I had to go and put some money out, I'd put it onto Frank's shoulders.
Because that's repayment for the work done by Frank when they started the attacks on the Col de Rome and carried on to the Col de la Colombière. That'll be 2 kilometres to go. They're up behind our comedy position now on our left side as we look at the pictures where we are. They'll continue to plunge down. Nibali and Lance are still racing here. That will be 4 kilometres to go. They've got a 2 kilometre buffer over these two, and in between is Andreas Cloden.
Well, Nibali coming by now, lifting up the pacemaking once again. I think we're now looking here at the legs of Andreas Cloden, 4th rider on the road. He is looking, though, Phil, for around about 2 minutes to try and pull himself back to those riders. It's a question now of just trying to conserve as much as possible on the eve of the individual time trial tomorrow around Lake Annecy.
The Schleck brothers have continued to take time out of everybody on the way down here, except Alberto Contador. This magical little climber from Spain continues the run of Spanish victories in the Tour de France. Remember, last year it was Carlos Sastre, before it was this man himself, and he's never ridden the race since. Now he's going to reward the hard work with the 2 riders from Luxembourg as he pats the back of Frank there. He is not going to contest the sprint, that's for sure. And I think Andy will reward brother Frank with a stage win.
I think that's absolutely right there. You can see Frank did all of the pacemaking and set up this move as we come now to 1 kilometre to go to the finish. And I think probably Alberto Contador will not try and get the stage victory, because as far as he's concerned, he's opened up a big gap over all of the other rivals that he had to in this race this afternoon. And he will conserve as much energy as possible for tomorrow's individual time trial.
Well, of course, Andy will move up, but whatever happens, he still remains 2 minutes and 26 seconds behind the man in yellow, and that's all that's important now. Alberto Contador over everybody else has gained time. He's still 2:26 ahead of Andy Schleck, who has tried everything today to climb on the podium in Paris, and when we see the results tonight, he might have slotted in to 2nd or 3rd place. We'll wait for the others to finish. It's the drive for the final day's result, and I don't think Contador will interfere with a celebration for Luxembourg.
Well, on the front, Andy Schleck, he's doing all of the pacemaking. He knows he's going to leave it up to brother Frank there, who is in 2nd place. Contador in 3rd. The team cars all behind now. We're inside of 350 metres to go. And Andy now is starting to wind up the sprint, I think, Phil, for brother Frank.
Well, this is it, the lead out from Bro in white. Where are you, Frank? And he says, I'm on your other shoulder, as he comes round the bend for the line now. And Contador is going to ride it out in the back. Frank Schleck, who did his job as a faithful brother and a teammate, has come clear for the win. Well, is he? Because Contador is making sure there's no gaps between the bikes, otherwise there'll be a separate time. Andy Schleck has got some power in those legs nonetheless. That doesn't look like the face of a man giving victory, I have to say. But anyway, Frank Schleck gets it, Contador is 2nd, Andy is 3rd. Now, have they done enough?
And how about this for a repeat of 2004, Lance Armstrong coming back up to Andreas Cloden as he did all those years ago. He's come up to his teammate here, and he's going to, hopefully he's going to, I'm hoping he's going to get him to cross the line in 4th place.
Well, remember that Lance Armstrong was 1:37 behind Contador. He was ahead of Schleck by about 49 seconds. So if he's further than 49 seconds behind, and he will be, I fear, he will lose second place tonight. But of course, the time trial tomorrow, and we still have the climb up Mont Ventoux, where Armstrong has ridden so well before. Race isn't done yet. 1 kilometre to go.
The last check we got, Phil, was around about the 2-minute mark. He's linked up there with Andreas Kloden. The way he's riding here, it could well just be inside the 2-minute mark on the finishing line. Armstrong here is riding for time ahead of Vincenzo Nibali, and of course right there in third position is his own teammate Andreas Kloden. They are trying to keep themselves close to getting that 1, 2, 3 that they're looking for at the end of the Tour.
And that would be unbelievable. Nibali lost ground today on Andy Schleck, of course, in the race for the white jersey. That's probably gone back to Andy. He won it last year as well. He's been racing in it for the last couple of days too. Kloden on the back here. Armstrong being left to drive on. It looks as though Nibali just wants to win the sprint and leave it at that. This will be the sprint for 4th place. Armstrong grits his teeth and tacks onto the back wheel of Vincenzo Nibali. Is he going to have the strength to come out? Remember, there'll be a different time for Kloden because he's let the wheel go, so he'll dock him 1 or 2 seconds as Nibali now races to the line. Armstrong sees it. Now is he going to try and jump round Nibali like he once came round Andreas Kloden when they came down into the Grand Bournon? Knowing Lance Armstrong, he's probably just going to sit and cross the line. He'll be in 5th place if that's the way.
Well, Nibali has done a big job of work today to try and keep himself in contact for the white jersey race, and Armstrong, it looks as if he is going to come past Phil to try and grab himself the 4th place on the line. It's going to be close.
No, he's just been pipped by, he didn't bother to challenge Nibali, but there's a definite time gap to Andreas Kloden. So that will make also a little bit difference to the final calculations. About 5 or 6 seconds it was there. Well, the countdown now for Fabian Cancellara. He's 1 hour 40 minutes behind the race leader of this Tour, so it's a very early start. He gets a usual cheer because he is the best time trialist in the world. He's bound to set the markers here as to who will follow, but of course the top riders to go at the very end for the overall. This is point number 2 here, and he isn't going to go through, this is surprising, in the best time, because in fact Mikel Ignatieff will stay on top here. Cancellara 11 seconds off the pace, but it must be remembered this is the hardest part of the course. Now Cancellara, as he goes away from this hill, is going to have to pick it up. As we come down to the finish, Cancellara has reversed the whole situation here. Ignatieff has led to all the checkpoints until the last one, and now this one. Cancellara gets the best time, 11 seconds to the good. That is going to take some beating.
So, best time for Cancellara, and a pretty good one for David Miller. He came in 38 seconds down on Cancellara's time, which was enough for 3rd place in the early going. Also, no doubt, relaying information about the course back to his teammate Bradley Wiggins. He spoke to Ned.
Treat it like a 10-mile time trial, which is the master axe is just pan flat, and basically you got that kind of 10-mile section out there. Just treat that like he's going for a 10-mile record. Then at the turn, it's very fast, so he can then relax a bit in the 4Ks before the climb, just kind of absorb what he's done before then, and then hit that climb and finish at the top like it's the end of the race. 'Cause once you get to the top, literally from the top to the bottom, everyone's going to be going the same speed effectively. It's just so fast.
Is yesterday out of his system because it was a bruising day for him, but actually he rode very conservatively and really pretty clever to limit his damages, didn't he?
He rode like somebody who's ridden like 5 Grand Tours for the win. I mean, he's amazing me on a daily basis. But the cheeky monkey this morning got on his home trainer, came off and said, "Oh, I feel quite good." I think that kind of blew out the cobwebs yesterday. So, I mean, I think we can count on him doing something special today. I think he's going to get his first Grand Tour stage win.
Now, as it turned out, Fabian Cancellara's time stood all day until there were just the top 6 left to go, starting with Bradley Wiggins.
3 times Olympic gold medalist in Athens and in Beijing, now looking for a podium at the Tour.
Bombs away.
He looked absolutely composed there, Paul. This man has psyched himself up for the start like he was going for gold at an Olympic 4,000 metres pursuit.
Well, what he has to do, I think, Phil, is to take the speed of the Olympic Games in the individual pursuit and transfer it, instead of over 4 kilometres, over 40 kilometres. He is a phenomenal time trialist. He's slimmed himself down dramatically over the last 12 months to change himself from being a top track rider to being one of the top riders in the world.
Very good start, Wiggo. Very, very good start.
This is a study of what a time trialing position should look like. He's a big man, Bradley Wiggins, extremely tall, in excess of 6 foot, but he's got himself down into a locked, solid aerodynamic position.
Yes, it's his playground now. The dishing out of pain which Alberto Contador gave Wiggins yesterday in the high mountains might be reversed today. Wiggins is one of the best time trial riders in the world. I think he is also mentally ready for it. Mentally ready to do a ride that might put him into a podium place going towards Paris.
Well, for Hincapie, it's a question of just getting this stage out of the way and getting himself psyched up and ready to do battle tomorrow and the next day when we go to the slopes of the Mont Ventoux. The next time checks to start to dribble in, though, Phil, will be extremely interesting. Wiggins is out on course. The man chasing him is Andreas Kloden.
Andreas Kloden getting ready for his big time trial today. He's no stranger to the Tour de France. This is his 7th event. He has twice been on the podium, 2nd overall in the Tour de France. Now he's underway. The last time he finished the Tour de France was 2006 when he was 2nd, as he now starts to settle into. Still a little bit annoyed at the way Contador dismissed him and dropped him and kept Franklin and Andy Schleck in the action yesterday. And he probably cost Kloden the 2nd place overall in the Tour in the time trial today.
We're getting down to the big names of the time trial here this afternoon. There are only 4 more riders to start after Wiggins and Kloden. Armstrong in a couple of minutes' time, Frank Schleck, Andy Schleck, and then Alberto Contador at 47 minutes past 4 o'clock here in the afternoon in France. Well, here we're looking into the face of Lance Armstrong here. Now he's wondering whether or not he can climb himself up into a top 3 position at the end of today.
So the final composture of Lance Armstrong back in the Tour de France, back in the time trial, looking for a win, which doesn't usually elude him in the time trial. But we'll see what he can do now. He's down the bank. He's got to go now. The crowd is cheering him away. The biggest cheer of the day.
Well, just talking to somebody yesterday, Phil, who was at the top of the Col de la Colombière, said that when Armstrong came over the top there in 4th position on the road, the biggest crowd was reserved for him. I think the crowd have really got behind this man. The French have supported Armstrong in his comeback, as did yesterday the French president, Nicolas Sarkozy, who had nothing bad at all to say about the man from Austin, Texas. The elliptical chainring here of Bradley Wiggins. He's looking for the first time check at 18 kilometres. That's in the town of Dussart. 147 riders have reached that point so far, with Mikhail Ignatiev, himself a very good track rider, Olympic gold medalist too in 2004, who stopped the clock there at 20 minutes and 21 seconds. Probably in about 15 minutes time now we'll get a chance to see if Bradley Wiggins is on a good ride. A special bike for Lance Armstrong this afternoon, Phil, the Livestrong time trial bike.
Well, as he settles into his rhythm here, the weather is good. If anything, the wind has dropped quite a lot at the moment. The first time check comes at 18 kilometres in. He needs to take 20 minutes and 21 seconds to get there to be the best time alongside Ignatiev.
Well, Lance Armstrong, Phil, is looking for 1:29 on the time of Andy Schleck if he's going to move into 2nd place in the overall standings tonight. He's looking for 30 seconds on the time of Frank Schleck. And we all know the 2 Schleck brothers are great mountain climbers, but certainly when they come to this specialised discipline of the sport, the individual time trial, it is not the part of the sport that they enjoy the most. And Frank Schleck now rolling down the track for 40.5 kilometres. He realises, Phil, this is possibly a rendezvous with destiny for him. He knows that the time trialists like Armstrong, Contador and, of course, Bradley Wiggins will be breathing down his neck by the end of the day once we rearrange the top end of the overall classification. It is so difficult to ride a time trial if it's not your speciality.
Wiggins now is into his rhythm. He's 11 minutes up the road now, so he's approximately over halfway to the first check, and that's when we'll see what he's doing. He too, of course, is aiming at 2021 of Ignatiev, but more importantly, they're aiming to gain time on one another of these last 6 riders to start. Back to the start. Andy Schleck gets the 30 seconds in his ear. The Luxembourger. Luxembourg's never had 2 riders at this level of the sport, and here they are going out today lying 2nd and 3rd in the Tour de France. That has certainly never happened before. Andy is 2nd.
And the winner this year of a very big, solid race called Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the oldest one-day classic on the calendar, and winning himself the National Road Race Championship. But for him, this is probably much more important as a rendezvous, the time trial, to try and keep himself on the podium.
And can you have a better magnet than your own brother, because they are so close friends, 3 minutes up the road. He starts off now, he'll settle in as fast as he can. He's riding now because he knows the mountains hold no fears for him. Mont Ventoux, he's not worried about that. He wants to stop Wiggins, Armstrong, Cloden running away with time today, so he can hold on for when he gets to Mont Ventoux.
Well, check this out for a man at speed. Bradley Wiggins, you can see the deep carbon fibre rim at the front. That's to make the front end of the machine as aerodynamic as possible, but he doesn't want to have a full solid disc wheel in the front there because he needs this bike to still be manoeuvrable. But the important thing, Bradley, is to keep a little bit in the gas tank for this climb, the Côte de Bluffy, which is very difficult. You have to go from one end of the overall gears right down to the opposite end.
Well, as the cameramen there scrabble to get to the other end of the course to catch them coming back, the crowd have cheered away the maillot jaune. It has been an idyllic day for the start and finish of the Tour de France time trial here in Annecy. Now the maillot jaune just straightened his helm a little bit, quickly into his position. Contador, remember, one of only 5 riders in the world to have won all 3 Grand Tours, Spain, Italy and France. He won France 2 years ago, couldn't come back last year for political reasons. His team wasn't invited, but now he's back and now he's free to fly.
Well, he has won every one of the last Grand Tours that he has participated in. The Tour de France, a last-minute selection last year to the Tour of Italy, and then the Vuelta a España at the end of last season. But this year, Phil, he has based everything on the month of July. He wanted to be absolutely perfect coming out here. One of the reasons he rode the Spanish Time Trial Championships was because he wanted to test out this machine, the actual machine he's riding in the time trial here around Annecy.
Well, it went well, no doubt about that, in the Spanish Time Trial Championships now. As he lays down here, his face already in a grimace of pain. Remember that all of these top riders now speeding towards the 18-kilometre check. None of them are there yet, but they can't be far away, I must say.
The fact is, Phil, is that Lance Armstrong is around about 4 seconds away from getting that lead, that 3rd place. But Bradley Wiggins has just gone through with the fastest time, faster than Mikhail Ignatieff by a single second. 20:20 for Bradley Wiggins. He has gone out like a fire.
Well, that is a tremendous start for Wiggins, and that is what David Miller said he would do. He said everybody would race for 2nd place. It's early, because don't forget, if you get some speed at the back end, as Cancellara did, then you will lose ground. It's hard now, and it's a very fast finish, but Wiggins is on course. 20:20. Now, what about the next men to follow him? Next through will be Andreas Cloden, followed by Armstrong, then the Schlecks, and finally Contador. Wiggins is blazing the leader's trail. Armstrong driving on to stop the Festina time up there. Now this is going to be an interesting time. The time has already dropped away, though, of Wiggins, so he's falling behind Bradley Wiggins at this point, as Lance Armstrong wants that clock to stop as quickly as possible. The best time is Wiggins in 20 minutes 20 seconds. Armstrong is conceding at 18 kilometres, about 20:29. 20:29.
I reckon it's 20:29 as he went through there, and that will put him faster than his own teammate Andreas Cloden, but around about 29 seconds slower than Bradley Wiggins.
The sun is out now and shining on a British rider who dreams of a podium in Paris. It's never happened before in the history of the Tour de France, which goes back a ways, back to 1903. But Wiggins is a different bike rider in this year's Tour, and he knows now this is the chance. He's got to gain time.
He has to put time between himself and the 2 Schleck brothers, because they will come out again and fight on the slopes of the Mont Ventoux.
He suffered a bit there, Paul, because he's gone through 25 kilometres and he's lost 10 seconds. He's not best time now at the check. In fact, it's Mikhail Ignatieff, who was originally best time from ages ago, has gone through. So Bradley is suffering where everybody else is on that one stretch of road just here.
Well, it could very well be because of the difference in the weather conditions. There was a big wind early on this morning, which pushed the early riders over the first 30 kilometres at speeds, Phil, approaching 60 kilometres now. But the most important thing is now, how can he handle the climb? This is the arrival of the winner of the Tour de France last year, Carlos Sastre. Where's number 1? A little bit anonymous in the Tour, but you know, when you've been a great champion of the Tour de France, you always have a big number on your back. He stops the clock in 59th.
Situation at the first check is Wiggins, Ignatieff, we can dismiss him, I think. Armstrong, Cloden, Cancellara has dropped down to equal fourth. At the second check, though, Wiggins has gone behind Ignatieff, indicating this part of the course is a little bit difficult even for him. But again, we only need to compare Wiggins against Armstrong, the Schlecks and Contador, and indeed Cloden. Lance Armstrong has continued on now. He's gone through as he heads on up to the next check, which will come at 25 kilometres, and it's a tough ride, that.
Well, it's the next part of the course is going to be important for Bradley Wiggins, Phil, because on the slopes of the climb, a lot of riders have started to suffer and to slow down. We haven't even got to the arrival yet of this man. A great ride by Andy Schleck, who's just gone through the first time check there, Phil, with the 8th time, only losing himself 26 seconds. Now, this is the arrival of Alberto Contador. It looks like 20 minutes on the clock. He's going to go inside the time of Bradley Wiggins. No official time check, but there it is, unofficially, 20:03.
Well, that is absolutely amazing. Alberto Contador had a speed wobble on turning left there, 20:02. That is the best time, 18 seconds quicker than the Wiggins, who's the champion at the moment. Everybody is now through the 18-kilometre dip check. Contador has come through it best at 20:02. Wiggins is second best, plus 18 seconds. Ignatieff, forget him. Armstrong is next best at 27 seconds. And those are the three who are head-to-head.
Well, this is the top of the climb now for Bradley Wiggins. The time he's looking for is the time of Mikhail Ignatieff, 37 minutes and 25 seconds. And the Russian rider was fastest at all 3 time checks on his way to go down towards the finish line. But he failed a little bit over the last part of the course when Fabian Cancellara kicked in, I think, the twin turbos.
So the face is grimace here. Wiggins may be a little bit behind here, but it'll swing back in his favour as he starts the run for home. He is still the best rider, apart from Contador, on the time board amongst the favourites. It's a long ride from the crowd line on that corner, but it looks as though Bradley has done pretty well here. He seems to have recovered a little bit as he heads up against Ignatieff. He's stopped the clock and he's reversed it now. 4 seconds to the better. Now Bradley, he's free to fly home.
Well, he's coming to the part of the course, Phil, once he goes over the top here that will suit his ability, because this is the fastest part of the course. This is where Fabian Cancellara laid down the foundations of his very fast time on the finishing line. If we're looking at the yellow jersey, virtual yellow jersey at the moment, we're looking at Alberto Contador, Schleck and Armstrong. But, you know, Bradley Wiggins is starting to pull himself just that little bit closer. We're looking here now at the man who wears number 22. Armstrong was 11th at the second time check, and now he's looking to see what he can do at the summit of this climb, the climb of the Côte de Bluffy. Armstrong sitting up a fraction now, trying to get as much oxygen into his lungs as he can. He's hoping and dreaming that at the end of this day he will move up a place in the overall standings to 3rd position at the end of the day. We're looking now at Cloden coming up to the next time check. He's trying to rival the time of Bradley Wiggins, but he is actually on a part of the course that suits him maybe a little bit more than the Brit.
It's been a hard climb for Andreas Cloden, Paul. He's 15 seconds down on Wiggins.
Well, he's 15 seconds down on Wiggins, but he's gone through in a similar time to Fabian Cancellara, who, let's not forget, has the fastest time at the finishing line. Wiggins is fastest at the top of the climb. The next man to come to the top of the climb will be Lance Armstrong on his special decked-out Livestrong machine. 4th at the first time check behind his own teammate Alberto Contador. 27 seconds adrift there behind the Spanish time trial champion. Armstrong on the final slopes of the climb now, Phil, and he's still got a very high cadence. He's still looking very nervous and energetic.
Lance Armstrong now out of the saddle as he looks here. You wouldn't think it by his face, but he just loves time trialing. He's won most of the ones he's ever ridden, amongst his 22 stage wins in previous Tours de France. He really is taking the shortest way round here. A little way to go yet to the check.
Yes, he's been on the bike now, Phil, for 36 minutes, and about a 1.5 minutes time he should be able to get himself up to that time check at 28.5 kilometres covered. Then it's all about the final 12 kilometres. Can you lift the pace? Can you push the speed up to 55 kilometres an hour to round off a very high average speed at the end of the day?
Well, Frank Schleck has conceded 1 minute and 20 seconds now away off Bradley Wiggins. He's gone through the 25-kilometre check, so he's losing a lot of time here. Wiggins could eat himself into a podium position with just a few days to go to Paris if he continues at this speed.
Christophe Lemavelle into the finishing straight. Faded a little bit this afternoon. He's had a lot of pressure on his shoulders to try and keep up in the best placed Frenchman performance. He's rivaling the time there of Stuart O'Grady as he comes to the finishing line, but he too, I think, can come out and do a little bit more battle over the next couple of stages.
3 minutes 18 conceded there by Christophe Lemavelle, and that's again only to Fabian Cancellara. It's how much will he concede to Bradley Wiggins, I think, because we've gone back to Lance Armstrong now. Remember, the time of Wiggins is 37 minutes and 20 seconds. Lance is up in the same region, but he will concede time, but he's not conceding a lot here as he heads up towards the top of the climb. Wiggins 37.20 is just gone by now, so he's gaining time on Armstrong. In fact, Armstrong expected to lose a little time to him, but he believes he can outclimb Wiggins on Mont Ventoux, so he'll just try to limit his losses, I think.
Well, he started the day 58 seconds ahead of Bradley Wiggins in the overall classification, and that is what he was hoping to try and conserve. He wants to try and get himself up to third if he can, and then defend that on the slopes of Mont Ventoux at the weekend.
This has hurt Armstrong, Paul, because he's now gone behind his teammate Andries Kloden. He's up against Evans here. Evans is going by as well, so Lance is slowing a little bit on that. The toughest section of the course, remember. It's always a long way underneath our camera before we stop the clock, but when we do, we're going to find now that Lance has lost a little bit of time here. 42 seconds to Wiggins. This is Wiggins heading up home. He's looking at a time of 49.03, so he's outside the time of the best two riders. It's been a hard return for him. He hasn't been as quick as three terrific time trialists, but he's just flew up that home straight. He's laying down the time now that he wants to hold off the men who are behind him. That's what's important to Bradley Wiggins, and this is the time he will establish as he comes up here now. He's inside 50 minutes. 49.13 is the finishing time for Bradley Wiggins. Now everybody else has got to match that behind him.
Well, look at this. This is a ride by Andy Schleck. It's not going to be one of the best times, but it's a very good time for this man who is not reputedly a good time trialist. He's rivaling riders like Christophe Moreau. He's riding riders like Mikhail Ignatiev at the top of this climb, and he, I think, is doing the best time trial performance that he's done in many, many years. He'll be using the times of Fabian Cancellara, Gustav Larsen, his own teammates, as a measure to see how he can rival and keep up at the top end of the overall standings and not lose too much time against Armstrong and Wiggins.
So Schleck now, as he passes under our camera, we get a time check. Lance Armstrong was 42 seconds slower than Wiggins at this point, who was then best time. There's Armstrong there. Andy Schleck is coming through very close to Armstrong's time, but he will go behind as he now goes behind 47.16. So he's only 5 seconds behind Armstrong at this point. He's pulled out something special.
Well, I'll tell you what, Andries Kloden has also pulled out something special as well, because he was a long way behind Bradley Wiggins at the top of the climb, but he's just gone through the final time check there, Phil, not very far behind Wiggins in 8th place, 38 seconds down, separated by only 9 seconds. The difference between Wiggins and Kloden at the start of the day was 9 seconds, so it may well be that Kloden is pulling himself back in front of the Brit.
Well, surprisingly, and I'm very surprised, Wiggins seemed to ride better uphill than on the flat, so it's completely reversed what he always was, a greyhound time trialist on flat roads, as now they're being challenged. Here's the maillot jaune of Alberto Contador, and this is a man far from disgracing himself in the time trial. To the contrary, he's just proving to us that he is the man in the driving seat of this year's Tour de France. He comes up the hill, the last man up the hill. Wiggins was best time here, and he was getting very close to Contador out on course. Contador was quicker than him. Has he held that advantage? All of the crowd leaning forward here to catch a glimpse of the yellow jersey. The flags of Spain are flying. The time is 37.20 to beat. He's got plenty of time to do that, I think. It's a long way to the line, and this is only the checkpoint, let me hasten to add, but I think he's still going to be best time up the mountain. That is going to be extremely satisfying.
Well, you can see how fast his legs are going round. He's keeping a very low gear on this climb, an exceptionally high cadence. He knows that he has to go faster than everybody else. It's a question of pride when you're the yellow jersey. You're the best man in the bike race, and in the final time trial you also have to prove that you're the best man against the clock too.
My goodness.
30 seconds faster than Bradley Wiggins at the top of the climb.
30 seconds. Contador has gone through with the best time of the day. That's a way to ride. Down to the finish quickly. Here comes Andries Kloden now. He's aiming at 4th place, so he is in a position with his time that will distinguish him between himself and Bradley Wiggins. Wiggins as he drops down to 8th place now. It's been a tough end for Andreas Kloden. 49.20 and counting. He's got to get it in. He's behind. He finishes 8th, 50 seconds down.
Yes, but he's going to go behind Bradley Wiggins in the overall classification by a couple of seconds. But out on the course, Phil, that is a phenomenal performance by the man in the yellow jersey. I have to say that Alberto Contador is flying around this course.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how he copes with the flatter roads because Wiggins quite clearly hasn't. Now we'll find out if Lance Armstrong has. We're looking at Andy Schleck, but it'll be next man in. It will be Lance Armstrong. We'll see just where he slots into that situation with the favourites. Schleck is one of the riders doing a terrific performance here today, and he's the one that wanted to do it, to stay in a podium position in Paris, matching himself against a discipline he's not that good at. Here is Lance Armstrong, who is good at time trialling. He's turning up the road now as he heads into town. He's 14th, they're saying, at the moment at this checkpoint at 1 minute 11 seconds. So he's conceding time, quite a lot of time just now, to Bradley Wiggins as he heads up towards the finish. Armstrong through the barriers here. Is he into the last 2 kilometres of riding now? How much is he? What's the time difference between him and Bradley Wiggins?
At the start of the day, they were separated by 58 seconds. So Armstrong has got to get himself to the finish pretty rapidly.
Well, he's got to get to, by a quick calculation here, 58 makes him 50.11. He's got to be in by 50.11, otherwise he will be behind Bradley Wiggins in the overall standings tonight. He's been riding just 48 minutes now. He's got 1.5 kilometres and he's got 2 minutes 11 seconds to do it.
Well, it's going to be very difficult, you know, Phil, because he's probably clocking off 1 kilometre at this speed at 1 minute and 10 seconds. So it's going to be touch and go on the finishing line. Currently, Armstrong is just holding on to 3rd position, but he's got to get there within that 50.11 if he's going to be ahead of Bradley Wiggins in the overall standings.
That's the virtual overall based on the times at the previous checkpoint. It all is really what happens down at the finishing line, but for my money, Armstrong has dug really, really deep here to try and hold time. And I think Wiggins must have slowed quite dramatically over that run-in because Armstrong seemed to be falling away. There is the kite, and looking at the clock, he's got about 1 minute 20 seconds. That should be enough.
He should be able to do that theoretically at this speed. He will be riding 1:10, 1:12 for the final kilometre. He's gone through there very rapidly. He will know that. He'll have the information in his clock, and he will do everything that he can to make sure that he crosses that line inside of 50.11, and that will keep him at the end of the day in 3rd place in the overall standings. And that was his dream, Phil, just a couple of days ago.
But if he stays ahead of Bradley Wiggins, he'll feel he's had a great day in the Tour de France because he believes he only has to worry about the Schlecks on the Mont Ventoux mountain. He wasn't really counting Bradley as a man to beat, and he's going to get in well inside that. I think is 50.11 will put him behind Bradley Wiggins in the classification by a few seconds. But as he roars up here, everybody is shouting Armstrong. Of course, he's not popular in France, as we are always told in the press. Armstrong is riding up to the finishing line here. The magic figure to stay ahead of Wiggins is 50.11. I think he's going to actually beat that. But Wiggins' time won't be beaten, but Armstrong pushes on here. Big final sprint by Lance, as if he knows what the clock is saying. He hits the line, 49.50. He's still holding his place in the Tour de France.
That means at the end of the day, he will climb up from 4th to 3rd in the overall standing. So the dream of a podium position for Lance Armstrong is still very much alive.
Unbelievable. This man is the champion we've known of old. He is still there as a champion from the day in August last year. He said he looked at the Olympic Games and said, I can still beat these guys. And now he's proving it. Back out to one man, though, he does have a problem with, and that's Alberto Contador now. Contador is turning out to be a terrific time trialist in the manner of the legendary Miguel Indurain.
Frank Schleck now is at 250 metres to go, and he's actually failed dismally over these last 12 kilometres. He's probably not even going to make the top 30 in this individual time trial.
Well, he was 31st at the previous check. Is he going to hang on to that? And the answer is no, he isn't. He's in fact just going to get to George Hincap's position. He's 33rd. It'll be 35th on the day with 2 riders still to finish, conceding 2.5 minutes to Fabian Cancellara.
Well, Andy Schleck is riding a much better time trial than his brother Phil, because he's gone through that final check there with the 18th best time, only conceding 1 minute and 26 seconds to his teammate Fabian Cancellara. So he's keeping himself right up at the top end of the leaderboard, currently holding on to a very good second place overall.
Well, this marvellous crowd here in the centre of Annecy has watched an incredible time trial today. I've always said the best way to watch a time trial is on television. We have the advantage of seeing them all around the course, and we have witnessed a champion performance in the Maillot Jaune today. Alberto Contador, I think, will deliver best time now. Only the clock will confirm that, but he has been incredible today. That yellow jersey has dragged him around the lake, and it looks like he goes up for the final weekend of France, having increased his overall lead. Here comes Andy up the home straight. When this tour started, he was a favourite to do well. He's confirming that now. He's still going to be in a podium position with 3 days to race in the Tour de France. 2 really, because we don't count Sunday. That's a day of honour for them all. Andy Schleck now drives on towards the line. 1 minute 41 he concedes to his teammate Fabian Cancellara, and that is a time which will keep him in second place in the Tour de France.
And that was his goal at the start of today's stage. It was also the goal of Frank Schleck, but Frank just could not rival his brother in the individual time trial. Only one man left out on course now to challenge the performance of Fabian Cancellara.
Let's remember that Alberto Contador left the start house exactly 3 minutes behind Andy Schleck. He's more than cut halfway into that lead as he heads up now towards a stage win here. The yellow jersey, there's no finer way to leave the Tour de France than to do what Lance Armstrong has done so many times, and that's deliver the best time in the time trial. As he comes up the home straight, it will be close, but he's looking at 48.33.9, and that will be his, oh, he can see it, 48.30.7. He's done it by 2.5 seconds.
Well, 3 seconds to be exact is the difference between these two men at the top end of the leaderboard. He faltered a fraction, Phil, over the last few kilometres, but what a great performance by this man. You can see the pain in his face there as he comes up to the line, just beating Fabian Cancellara in the last lunge for the line. That really goes to prove that this man is the strongest man of the 2009 Tour de France. He has shown it in the mountains. He's defended it admirably here with a great win in the individual time trial. This is the crowd at the summit of the climb. We're around about 1.5 kilometres to go to the top. Alessandro Balin is the world champion there in the white jersey with the rainbow bands around it. Laurent Lefebvre is the Frenchman with the blue shorts and B-Box Boyd Telecom. Col de l'Escrinet, we're inside of 500 metres to go to the top, and this is the main field, and still Menshoff.
Looking at the winner of the Giro d'Italia on the front, they're looking at the yellow jersey of Alberto Contador, they're looking at Lance Armstrong, who is in second place, Bradley Wiggins just behind, Andy Schleck and Frank Schleck, and then comes the Columbia HTC guiding Mark Cavendish to a possible sprint win, and right on his wheel, the green jersey of Hushoft.
Well, this is not what we predicted at all, Phil. I expected a big splitting of the main field here, but, you know, when you're a sprinter with the pride of Mark Cavendish, who has this dream of getting the green jersey on the Champs-Élysées, I think that's what's driven him up this climb this afternoon. He's inside of the last kilometre of the climb, so he will crest this main field in the climb with the rest of the group, and that makes it line up for a very interesting charge to the finishing line here.
It'll be very exciting, guaranteed today. Now, once we go into the last 16 kilometres of the day, they'll have to descend, and there's a couple of hairpins on the way down, as Balin himself, the world champion, crests the last climb of the day. And this is the Col de l'Escrinet, and the world champion's got his first prize in this year's Tour de France, out on course as well, as behind Laurent Lefebvre goes over second.
Well, he'll be a tough man to pull back. There is the main field, and that's Egoy Martinez, Phil, with a little bit of pride, getting himself third place and a few extra points to keep himself solidly in second position in that competition. Andy Schleck comes across in the top 6 or 7, but the sprinters are there. The green jersey on the shoulders of Hushoft, and of course Mark Cavendish for Columbia HTC.
So now what they've got to do is pull back those two leaders and try and make it a day for Cavendish. That won't be easy.
Well, this is a good move now, because this is Luis Leon Sanchez, and he knows that he's got a great chance of getting himself across the gap. He's one of the very good descenders of the main field, and he's trying to get himself across the gap. I noticed Liquigas had thrown caution to the wind as well there, trying to send somebody, but to catch this man on his set is very difficult. He's looking to bridge a gap of around about 10 seconds. In fact, it looks, I'm not sure whether it's the television screen, but it looks as if there's a little bit of rain starting to fall, and that will make the descent very precarious. Luis Leon Sanchez, already a winner of a stage, being chased there. Looks like it's Sandy Cassar chasing him, the man who finished second to him on the stage of the Tour as we came out of the Pyrenees. Important to ride at the front here, especially as you can see the rain is starting to come down, because it has been so hot throughout the day. This little bit of rain will make it very slippery on the surface, especially when you can see the blacker part of the pavement there, because that's where the tar has started to melt because of the temperatures. Well, they said it was going to rain, and here it is. Just a little bit of a cloudburst to dampen the spirits. It's not dampen the spirits of Luis Leon Sanchez. Charging across the gap there. The gap is stretched out to 12 seconds, and Luis Leon Sanchez is not getting away from the front end of the main field. Just looking now at Sanchez, he's taking a lot of risks. This just little powdering of rain coming onto the surface field is going to make it quite dangerous, because it's been so hot. You just need that little slip.
Oh, it started to rain heavily.
It is raining heavily.
They're unlucky, Paul, because we're still dry at the finish, but the clouds to our right, which is the way the riders are coming at us, it's quite black just now. This could make a very different bike race. And this will only add to the organisers' worries, I think, because of the approach to the finish. They're saying it's 6 seconds, they're saying now. We've got 12 up there, 14 kilometres to go. You can see that the field itself on the way down is a little bit nervous now. There's quite a big split in it on the way down the hill.
Well, the speed of Luis Leon Sanchez down this descent, he's one of those, right? We had that poll a little while back, Phil. We talked about the top descenders in the sport. They talked about Torhusov. They talked about Cancellara. Oh, sorry.
I talked about Cancellara. I'll talk about at the moment Alessandro Ballan, who's in the front. Paul's throat just dried up. Laurent Lefebvre, second over the climb. Martinez, he's been chipping away at the points to try and consolidate second place behind Pelazzotti. When we go to Paris, he can't catch Pelazzotti, and he knows that, of course.
Well, the organisation of the front end of the main field now, Phil, has switched across, and that looks very much to me as if it's Columbia HTC, and they will be trying to bridge across this gap to 3 riders. There are still 2 riders in the lead, Ballan and Laurent Lefebvre. Halfway across the gap, flying across the gap, in fact, is Luis Leon Sanchez. Now, if he makes the junction, that's going to be very difficult to pull back.
And all of this being enacted under quite a nasty little rain shower here, as they've got the safest way down, these two. You can see the rain on the legs of Alessandro Ballan beginning to glisten there. Columbia HTC are getting a little bit excited now as they start to drive the chase as well. And they've got to look after Mark Cavendish and try and keep him away from trouble. You can see the green jersey of Hushoff moving up to assist, but not really. He'll sit on the wheel of Mark Cavendish, while the yellow jersey of Contador riding at the front to stay out of trouble. Here's Sanchez, and it looks as though they may be pulling him back. He's caught.
Well, Sanchez has given up. He got himself halfway across the gap, but he felt that he couldn't quite make it. These are the 2 leaders. If you look just a little bit further back down the road, you can see the front end of the main field. Advantage is still to the attackers, because it's downhill almost to the outskirts of town. It drops down like this till we get into the little outskirts of Aubenas and the town of Vaisseau, and then it starts to get very precarious because the road is very narrow.
Clearly these two can't pedal any faster, so they're going to have to freewheel. George Hincapie starts to ride on the front as well. Columbia HTC are taking a familiar role here, a role we haven't seen for a week, of course, because there's been nothing for Mark Cavendish through the Alps.
No, the sprinters taken a back seat, and I'm sure that many of them, Phil, felt that they were going to take a back seat this afternoon. It's 10 kilometres to go, and at these speeds, that's going to be around about 12 minutes of racing. Columbia on the front, they don't want to give everything out just now, because they know they've got to control and still conserve a certain amount of energy to lead out the sprint. Trying to get himself onto the wheel of Mark Cavendish is Torhusov, the leader of the green jersey points classification. Now, if Cavendish can start to get stage victories today, then we are looking at the race for the green jersey being back on.
We are just inside 10 kilometres to the finish. The two leaders on the way down, and still the world champion Alessandro Ballan doing most of the work here. Laurent Febvre is the rider with him. With the chase behind, they're trying to regroup and they're running away, I think, from that little rain shower. The roads are a bit drier here. There's no rain at the finishing line, so the gods may be on their side here because they'll have enough problem with the tortuous approach to the line on narrow roads with a peloton like this.
Well, Columbia HTC doing the pacemaking on the front. It's Tony Martin, Maxime Montfort, George Hincapie behind them as their sprinter Mark Cavendish. But sprinters are lining up behind the man from the Isle of Man, Mark Cavendish. Behind him is Hushoff. Behind him is Gerard Cholik. Very fast men. This is going to be a real royal sprint on a day that we did not expect it.
They look quite a long way behind there, as we can see over the shoulder of the two leaders. They're going to look as though they feel anyway they can hold them off here. Umbrella still up on the street corner there. A rechange at the front here. They're having a bit of a shuffle, and these are one of the narrow streets here, so they've just got to watch themselves through these towns now. This is Milram at the front line. Gerdeman's got himself onto the front from Milram, and the Columbia HTC boys also all here. George Hincapie into second wheel there. Remember, this is the man who has a suspected broken collarbone, still riding his Tour de France for Cavendish.
16 seconds. It's still stretching out for the two leaders. A little bit of panic now starting to appear in the faces of the teammates of the sprinters as they realise now this is a fast run to the finish. And when everybody's going downhill at 60 kilometres an hour, Phil, it's very difficult to actually nail down a gap.
Well, and he's trying to squeeze every inch out of this course right now. He pedals as far as he can, and then he gets the free wheel, lowers the streamlining comes in, and I'm not too sure, but I haven't actually seen Laurent Febvre do any work in these last few minutes. It's all the world champion.
Well, the world champion is a class act. He's got big power. He won the Tour of Flanders a couple of years ago. You know, throughout his career, Phil, Alessandro Ballan has only ever won 9 professional bike races, but they're all pretty big ones.
Yes, he chooses well, I must say. A bit like Oscar Freire, though Oscar's on a lot more than that. But this is Laurent Lefebvre now as he continues 7 kilometres to the finish. He's never been much further than 12 seconds ahead of the peloton. There they are, almost on the same stretch of road we saw moments ago. And now the green jersey of Hushoff is just locked in. He's having a bit of a bump there. I think it's with Gerald Cholik because they both want the back wheel of Cavendish.
That's what they're looking for, and that's what they're going to try and base their sprint on. But if there's going to be a sprint, they need to nail back those two riders, Ballan and Lefebvre. It's down to 11 seconds. This is Linus Gerdeman on the front. A man like Linus Gerdeman and George Hincapie, they don't think about any personal glory at a moment like this. They've got to keep the body hurting for as much as possible and look up the road every now and again to try and judge the difference in gap between themselves and the two leaders. And that is their prey, and that's what they're looking for. Really is not a very big group on a day when we expected a group of 40 or 50 riders to come charging into town, but not containing all of those sprinters. The sprinters realising they've taken a backseat for many, many days as this race has gone through the Alps. We've had the individual time trial. It has not been a race for the sprinters. Now on a day with a big second category climb towards the end, it looked as if again they would be robbed and it would be the chance of the breakaways. These two men just again going through a slight cloud burst, stretching out that advantage to 12 seconds. They are dreaming of getting into the outskirts of Ober now. And once they do, the road gets tricky. It gets windy and narrow, and that may well be the advantage for them because they will be out of sight and maybe out of mind. But still, organised chase on the front. Two teams, Milram and Columbia.
There's still a lot of work being done. There's nothing in it at all. They're a little bit worried, Paul, about the right-hand turn. About 500 metres to go, I think, like they should be, because it looks now as if we're approaching the car this morning. A little rise as they go through the town before the turn as well, and quite narrow. As we go under 5 kilometres to go, the two leaders, we pull back, there is the pack. It's not the whole of the Tour de France today. We did lose quite a few riders on the climb, but all of the men that matter are here, and the two sprinters and Oscar Freire, I think they will be the ones now to dice out the finish.
Well, I'll just take you through the last 5 kilometres, Phil, because from here to the next roundabout, 1.5 kilometres, it's reasonably straight, and then it starts to get very bendy. We go around a roundabout at 3 kilometres to go, then there's a sharp left-hand bend, around a roundabout at 1.2 kilometres to go, and then they've got that very sharp left-hand bend over the bridge, and then the right-hand one that you were talking about. But strangely enough, it is a very good finishing straight of around about 250 metres once they've taken the last sweeping right-hand bend.
There's a huge crowd here too, all straining on the barrier at the moment to see who comes up here first. These boys have really tried to take this race away from the sprinters. 8 seconds the gap, 4 kilometres to go. It's not very far, is it? The roads are almost in their favour because there's not too much straight now. Once we get up this road here, we get rights and lefts, and we're in a village as well. The peloton trying to organise themselves. Milram are doing a good job. They're doing it for Columbia HTC just at the moment. We've got all their lead-out men lined up ready to fire the next missile.
Well, Gerdman swung off and gone to the back, but there's still a rider from Milram prepared to do the pacemaking on the front end of the main field. In fact, it's still Gerdman. He's gone right back up there, realising this is important for his man Gerard Cholek. George Hincapie now takes over. Behind him, you can just see that was Tony Martin, followed by Maxime Montfort, and locked in behind his teammates there is, of course, Mark Cavendish. No Mark Renshaw this afternoon, but you know what? I still think they've got a very good chance of leading him out properly. This is the right-hand turn around the traffic circle. That is not a big group, is it?
No, it's not a big group now. I think that's probably just as well. The police, the guys were planning on going right and left of that roundabout, but of course they were turning right. That would have been a total disaster if they had gone straight through. The rain is coming down again at 3 kilometres to go. It's amazing, not raining here at the finishing line. 3 kilometres to go for the world champion and for Laurent Lefebvre. They've dangled right in front, but they're beginning to panic a little bit here now. They want to finish this off.
Well, they certainly do. They've come to the part of the course now, Phil, which is going to start to suit the riders at the front, because there you can see the 2 leaders going around the corner. They can take the risks going around here, where in the main field it is very tricky. It's not very much at all. It's not much more than 3 or 4 seconds, but you can see the power of Team Columbia. They're in fact starting to open gaps all the time. They're not completely organised. Cavendish is still in 4th place, but Columbia still have 3 men to lead out the sprint for Cavendish, with Hushovd in the green, locked into the slipstream of Cavendish.
And they've made that left turn safely. They're slightly uphill here, and they'll bear slightly to the right as we look at the television. There are the 2, and they're still holding that gap, which it means that the sprinters here, or the teammates of the sprinters, are going to have to use a lot of energy up just to close this gap down. Alessandro Ballan, all of a sudden, after 3 weeks, is beginning to look like the world champion he is.
Well, he is a class rider, but I'm not sure that he's going to survive here this afternoon, because there's big organisation on the front end of the main field, and it's coming from one squad at 2 kilometres to go.
2 kilometres to go now for these riders as they head towards the finish, and they are flat out. Well, these 2 riders are still hanging on. They still have a moment to dream, but George Hincapie is about to spoil that dream. The rain is at 2 kilometres now, and it's still not raining here.
Well, it's still dry in the finishing straight as we can see the motorbikes coming along here. Alessandro Ballan makes one final clip to try and get himself away from Laurent Lefebvre, but he's not going to stop the inevitable, because there is big George on the front, ducking and diving, nodding his shoulders a fraction, trying to find that little bit more energy to nail back a man who he knows the reputation of, because he's won the Tour of Flanders. Here is a right roundabout, and then once they go over this, they've got a nasty bridge. Somebody's taking a shot up there.
That's got to be Oscar Ferrer. He's the only one that would do that as he went across the roundabout.
I'll give him points for that, for staying upright.
It was the quickest way, fortunately, Paul, but there is the catch at 1.2 kilometres from the line. George Hincapie's done his job. He has now moved out of it. Julian Dean, by the way, for Garmin, is now trying to lead Tyler Ferrer as well to the line. This is now going to get a little bit rough on roads which are glazed with water here. At 1 kilometre to go now, and they've still got the flick up towards the finish at 500 metres.
Well, this is an amazing day. Of course, you've got all the leaders of the overall classification in this group, Phil, but I never expected to see all of the top sprinters present and correct, as they're now looking and searching for the Flamme Rouge, the red kite. Cavendish is still up at the front. He's in 2nd position. That's a long way to go from here. On his wheel there is Hushovd behind him, and Cholek a little bit further back. You can see the orange jersey of Oscar Freire. He needs to win it for the boys this afternoon, because they did a great job for him.
Mark Renshaw leading Mark Cavendish with Hushovd on his back wheel. Cholek just behind him. This is going to be an almost slow motion sprint, because now they've seen the hill and they've got to hang on in there as long as possible. Farah is also in there too, as Hushoff grits his teeth now. Now they will see the finish, the last couple of 100 metres to the line as they come off that final bend. They can't wait any longer, but you know that's too far. Mark Cavendish can't possibly hold this up for this far, can he? He's kicking again, but I think it'll come something and will come over him here. If he holds this, Paul, he is a very, very strong rider. He led out so far down the track, I didn't think it was possible. There's no one can touch Mark Cavendish with a win like that. That was incredible.
Phil, there was a little bit of added motivation in the sprint of Mark Cavendish this afternoon because of the relegation of almost a week ago in Besançon. It was a long way to the finishing line, but he could feel the challenge coming alongside him. You know, when you're a sprinter, you can almost feel the wind moving behind you when guys are starting the challenge. There, looking back, he sees it's Hushoff. He can feel now the acceleration coming there from Cholik on his left-hand side, and he kicks. Cholik comes up to his bottom bracket there, the pedals on the bike, and all of a sudden he kicks again. This man has got an incredible turn of speed. Hushoff just has to be happy to finish in the slipstream. Second for Hushoff, third for Cholik, but that's a great win for Mark Cavendish.